You guys have been asking us a lot of questions, and we figure out the best way for us to answer them is to actually just, do that. And it's something that we're trying. We are kind of welcoming your feedback on the format as well, but we just want to jump in and answer some questions you guys have. And Chris is leading us off with a really good question.
So Opera has been building browsers for over 30 years. So it's a very natural question that our community asks us, how are we prioritizing Neon?
Well, Opera Neon is a very special browser in our actually broad portfolio of browsers. And it's AI browser with agentic capabilities literally built in to the browser with a couple of agents that actually help people to not only navigate the web, but actually create and do stuff in the browser, act with them. So this is an amazing step, in our 30 years history of Opera being in the industry of actually the web and the browsers. It's the opportunity actually to innovate. It's our huge focus for innovation and a place to ship every new technology and every new solution that we can either drop as a bleeding edge solutions or actually already translated into user experience. So Neon is an important place where we actually, challenge all the AI race in Opera style.
Yeah, and on AI can feel overwhelming sometimes, so many things coming out that kind of feel like a breakthrough, and browsing might change in a fundamental way, and we want to adapt to that and want to do it closer with you, because AI is as much about innovation as it is about getting the actual use cases on how to use it now, and this is what we're focusing on and kind of enabling you to do that.
We have a pretty unique portfolio of browsers. Opera One, our iconic browser, Opera GX, Opera Air, and Opera Neon, 4 desktop browsers. Now, definitely I can imagine there's a lot of question, what are the differences between those browsers? And I believe community from Neon are also interested, why not just Opera One with AI features? Why we actually really double down first on dropping innovation in Neon. So Vashko, what is the strategy behind Neon then?
So I think this is something that came a lot from the community. I think there's a very high expectation of the really agile features we have on our flagship products to be just simply copy-pasted into Neon. The way we view both is that Neon is the product where we have all the space to just integrate every cutting-edge AI feature we can, and then migrating that to other browsers, we have to take a lot of things in consideration. But what ends up happening is that some of those features get premiered in Neon first, and then we ended up bringing them over to different products. But what's also important to understand is that we're also trying to bring the more established features of products like Opera One into Neon. A good example of that would be split screen, which actually it's in the works and we should have it soon. But it's also a constant balance of us also trying to prioritize all the new AI things we want to include in the product. And that sometimes makes it difficult for us to fit in the original features of other products into our roadmap. Because we want to have a clear distinction that Neon is always the place where you're going to experience first the new AI features we're trying to push out.
And also here to add to Vashko's point is we all know that AI is super powerful, but we are also aware, not only our product, any product that you use out there, that there are AI hallucinations, that things don't always work the way engineers or the product intended, right? This is not only Neon, this is any AI product. So I think it is more valuable for our users that we premiere it in Opera Neon, where we have AI enthusiasts, where they can give us feedback, where we can continue refining certain features before bringing it to a wider audience, which also, of course, includes people that are not as proficient with AI as, for example, our Neon audience. So I guess that's also a very important part that we consider as a company, the readiness of product, but then also, of course, the speed of bringing the features to the users so that we can get feedback and work together with our community to improve it.
And saying that, actually, we entered a kind of a field where we really need to understand that one thing it's technology, and one thing it's how we turn this technology into features, right? So knowing our audiences for Opera One, GX, Neon, and Air, we know their expectations. That's why Neon is a great chance to release a raw technology, a feature. We have a community we talk to them, we get a feedback, we experiment. But of course, this almost the same feature can be repackaged in a different experience for the needs of our Opera One users or Opera GX users. And that is also kind of reverting to the portfolio of our browsers, where we really understand user needs, so we can actually align the exciting technology actually and place it into their lives.
Yeah, and speaking of other products, like our team is also constantly working on our AI assistant across the different products. It's just that they have different timelines because, like they mentioned, like we need to make sure they become much more refined. But Neon will always be the place where you will get to experience the brand new AI innovation that we're trying to bring. Opera Neon was one of the first agentic browsers. What's your thoughts on augmented browsing that connects to other tools? I think you can lead us off on this.
Oh, for me, great. Let me start from very top thought. Browsers are a hot topic again, and desktop browsers definitely. Think about it. Is it really often that you talk about your browser with your friends? Not really. And now with this whole, new tools coming up every day, suddenly for people who are really rely to base their work day on desktop tools, it is a topic. And browsers are actually also in this tech stack of your day. So basically, suddenly a browser is a daily essential tool. And with the whole AI capabilities, agentic capabilities, it's actually changing the way you work and operate. So Opera Neon, having a model agnostic engine, also including a couple of AI agents and other AI features, actually participate in your tool chain throughout a day. And what is even more exciting is, of course, the MCP technology all over the place. So people can actually connect tools that they could never really connect before. So augmented browsing is a bit abstract question, I would say, but it's almost like tool is no longer a problem or a decision, right? Like once you set up your kind of a flow or your tool chain, right? Like your favorite services or maybe your work services and Opera Neon somewhere in there, suddenly you're completely focused on what you want to do wherever you are, and you just ask one agent, the other agent is waiting to hand off this, etc. For people who are creative, for people who let's say are highly operational people switching contexts a lot throughout the day, this is actually a big extension of their capacity.
Yeah, and it's not like we already spend a bunch of time in front of our screens like working. It's just that now all of a sudden we have a tool that can enhance that experience a lot, and we're figuring out how much and how can we enhance it in a smooth way, right? It's just that your workflows just all get this huge boost of a tool that can just enhance them all together, right?
I guess also one very interesting thing was you mentioned, Joanna, while we were preparing for this question, right, a little behind the scenes, you mentioned the fragmented AI stack. And I think that's very interesting because Opera Neon gives you everything in one place, which means like the days are gone where you need to have one tab for video creation, another tab for image, the other one for research, the fourth tab for an agent that you think is better for strategizing, and it's like different models for different purposes. And we don't tell you which one to use because we want to give you the opportunity to use all of them for different purposes. But I guess that's like the strength so much of Opera Neon, right? It's like you can have one chat where the context is in there, and you can ask one agent to do one thing, and then you jump to the next model for a reply. And then you can straight away switch into create an image out of this, and then you switch into create me a video out of this. and then you can paste it into research. So I really also like the topic of the fragmentation, which actually we're solving with this.
Cool.
So as I just covered the fragmented AI stack, we are moving to the next question, which is actually about our AI agents. As you know, we have different ones, right? We have Neon Chat, Neon Do, Neon Make. We have a research agent. And this question is particularly about the research agent because, as we know, it's a very liked feature by our users. It has benchmarked really well, and they noticed some changes in there. So could you talk a little bit about it?
It's been super nice to see how much you guys interact with this feature, and our product team has been loving the fact that you've been doing so. Deep Research is really one of our flagship agents. It's almost like having a group of, let's say, 5 researchers there for you. It just gives you a full detailed breakdown of whatever topic you're into. And our team is just constantly working on that behind the scenes and finding the ways to give you the most quality possible of answers. And we just recently introduced an even more capable feature within research. You want to tell us a bit more about that, Joanna?
Yes, obviously, if you think about it, you ask a research agent because you have kind of a deeper or challenge. It's not like a simple prompt or a simple question to any AI. So we were thinking that if you are in a research mode yourself, you want to connect the data that is also relevant specifically to you. Our research agent now has this capability to browse the web when researchers are working using your browser session. It means that if there are pages that you are logged in with that specific content that should be included in this research, Neon Research Agent will actually take that content, get the access to that content because you allow it. It's opt-in option. So you allow Neon to browse like you are logged into the web.
Yeah, just having all that context because I feel that's sometimes what we struggle with AI is like constantly feeding it context, and that's where browser comes in and allows you to use the page that you're browsing on as the actual context. So that's a really big difference maker.
And since we also just talked about opt-in and research, would you also opt in that I briefly mentioned what is new with follow-up in the conversations with research? Yes. Awesome. Okay. This is very fresh, but we're very excited to talk about it because you just talked also about context, right? And if we take it to the practical level also of research, obviously there are a lot of users of ours that actually do proficient research, but very often we also research a topic to have good context to then continue our tasks and our workflow on, right? So this new feature that we brought into our research agent is actually exactly about that. Because previously you conducted a research and then you had a PDF or a document and then you had to again copy paste or you had to read something. We often don't really want to read everything, but we want the context of it, right? And that's why actually us enabling the feature of following up the conversation is so powerful, because you can just follow up. It will know the context of everything that it has just researched, and you can just ask it a question and basically build on that knowledge. Which again, it's kind of like the fragmentation within the research, which we're also taking away. Because as we know, context is super important. We can ask a simple question to AI, how to be happy. It will give us a great response. But if we then conduct a research on happiness and then ask that question, we will get a very different quality of reply. So that's why I'm very excited actually about this follow-up feature, which is very fresh.
And maybe let me go through this kind of a step you do with Neon, a little bit bigger perspective you also have in your tabs. We know that in Neon you have a task, which is a group of tabs specifically within a context of your current work. This feature is actually, in general, proving that we're constantly aiming to set up a Neon as a browser that you can seamlessly and very smoothly operate with agents, whatever you have to do. So in your task, a couple of tabs. One of them is research, another one maybe a Google document open, another 3 tabs maybe whatever websites, but actually Neon understand the full context. That's why, going from the research with follow-up questions, that can actually turn into chat with Neon Chat, or maybe another exploration with Neon Do, or maybe suddenly maybe a presentation or something interactive you built with Neon Make. And that is extremely powerful in Opera Neon browser, that you're not limited into linear conversation, because in a specific task, in this task, the tab group, let's say, you just jump between components of your topic.
We've been talking a lot about how Neon is designed to just help you be more agile on your day-to-day work, especially when you're switching to a bunch of context. And now we have some questions that are related to the features that enable that. So cards is one of the features we love the most here at Neon, and it's always something we're super excited to see people coming up with new ones. Chris, do you want to let us know the plans we have for cards?
Of course. So you can think about cards as safe instructions that you can attach to your prompts, right? So to say, like, you can skill up your prompt. And the coolest thing about it is it's right inside the browser. We don't have to go to GitHub or any external landing page, right? You can just, inside the browser, you can create them yourselves. You can also check the ones that the community has made, or even our product, or even us have made, and really play with them. And since they're so efficient and fast, you can sort of say, like, pull a card out of your card deck, use it for your prompt, and then if you didn't like it, you pull the next one. And I think since we know prompting is an art, and for those of us who work a lot with AI, I think we all have done let's talk the real world situation. We all had a lot of Instagram posts saved on our phone, or we have screenshots, or we have this one prompt that my boss told me is so awesome, right? So we have like prompts that we look for, that we hear are super good, but they're all scattered all over the place. And that's really like the power again with cards, is that we bring them in one place. They're efficient to just click on, to find. We also have the option to get them upvoted, which is awesome, because obviously there's a large volume of cards, but you also want to know which ones are the ones that are the most upvoted, aka which are the most powerful and the best ones. So I think cards are awesome, just due to the fact, because again, prompting is an art, and with cards you can become the artists of it.
And what you said, Chris, is actually telling the story. What is Opera Neon in your daily, let's say, schedule? We know Neon is for people who spend a lot of time on the web, but not only, shopping, planning travel, or just doom scrolling. That's also okay. But we know that there are people who spend a lot of time in the browser working, creating, just materializing stuff. And there's a lot of manual work that you need to just literally click out. And having cards or agents, it's actually speeding up something that can be automated or optimized. And then you have more time for, like a cool job. You have more time to think, to create, to even chat with agents about specific concept. So cards are actually used by our users to really speed up the work that doesn't have to take so much time.
And by the way, I guess we can also tease our users, right, that we're working on updating cards as well. So stay tuned.
Neon Do is another flagship feature of ours, like incredibly agentic in the sense that it can just like run things for you while you're doing other things. And it's something we're working on. We're most recently just added scheduled tasks to it, so you can just, the normal tasks you would already ask it to do, you just can schedule them now. We're constantly working on it, and we want you to be sure that we see it as a very important part of this browser.
Especially because the whole topic of automation, right, is what is so attractive with AI. So having a scheduled task that you can tell tomorrow morning at 9 to run through your documents, to look at your calendar and all those things, that's really kind of like where automation is happening right inside Neon.
So we covered cards and Neon Do, which are super important for our browser, but the elephant in the room and what you guys have been asking us so much is MCP. So Chris, what can you tell us about MCP?
Let's keep it simple. MCP is there. It basically means that you can connect your external AI tools like Claude Code, ChatGPT, NA8, Lovable, anything that speaks MCP to Opera Neon. Why? Because then it can read your live browser session, right? Can go through your tabs and get context. And number two, it can act for you, which means like it can open new tabs, it can click, it can fill forms. So it's very powerful. I don't want to cover it too much because it's better to understand it really with an example, which if you just click down below, we have a great example there with Claude Code and how it's connected to Neon. So let's keep it simple on this one for today.
Yeah, but super exciting that we're bringing this. I know you guys have been asking a lot and this has been something in our mind. You even probably saw us asking you some questions about it. We just really been working on what would be the best way to bring this to the product.
Well, we talk a lot about agents, but let's go back to the topic of models. We mentioned that Opera Neon is running on its own AI engine, which is model agnostic. But we also have this feature of model selector, where you can actually chat with Neon Chat, selecting the model you like from the best models out there, actually. Vashko, maybe you can share a little bit more information. What is the lineup behind it?
Yeah. So we saw you asking a lot of questions on when you noticed we're introducing a new model that some of them are restricted. That has been the case, for example, with ChatGPT 5.4 Pro. And really to make you understand is that our priority is to give you the quickest access possible to these new models that just come to the market in chat. And we could bring it in the full form, but we would delay that. So what we choose to do instead is that we give you the essential version right away for you to start playing with it, and then we work on rolling out the rest of the features so it's not restricted, which is actually the case with ChatGPT 5.4.
All right, so that is a model selector. Whenever you're interacted with Neon Chat, in one conversation, you can actually ask different models using the model selector, which is super interesting because you can also either check one topic with how different models will really treat it, or you can continue conversation picking for every other question a different model. But we also can go back to our model agnostic AI engine for Opera Neon. Chris, maybe you want to take from here?
Yes, I can do that. So I think it's very good what you mentioned, right? We have different models, and just to hone in, like, we don't want to tell you which model to use for what, because we know that you will have your preference, right? And you just have the different options to go for. When we talk about model agnostic, that's slightly different because that's our engine behind, right? So if you ask, let's just take the example, if you have a prompt in Neon Make to create a video, we will automatically decide, okay, which is the best model that suits that prompt to get the best outcome for you, right? So we always consider the user value upfront. So that's why we have the model selector, which gives you the option to customize, quote unquote, which model you want to select for your conversation. But then we also have the model agnostic part where it's like, okay, we know your intent, what you want to create, and we will choose for you based on the different parameters and all the work that we've done, the best model for that one. So that is how we combine the multi-model approach and the model agnostic approach, which I think serves as the biggest value for our users.
I think we're approaching the end of our Q&A session. And I know that for the last question, we kept the one about the roadmap, which is always kind of exciting for you guys. I know we're shipping either improvements or new AI capabilities every week, and we get a lot of awesome feedback from you guys. So we're very happy to kind of give you a sneak peek. What are our priorities, what we want to do. So Vashko, maybe you would like to wrap it up?
Yeah, so one of your most asked questions is also about mobile and Linux. And this is obviously the experience we are planning to offer you. It's just that right now we're mostly focused on developing the core product. And a part of some of the things we already talked about today, between like cards and do, which are on the roadmap that we're going to improve, we have other things coming like vertical tabs, for example, which connects to the expectation of migrating some of the best features from our flagship product into Neon, but also the ability to save unfinished tasks. So all of this is part of the roadmap, and the only reason we're here today is because you guys have a ton of questions, you guys give us feedback, so like Discord has been the best place for us to source this, and roadmap-wise is also where you can just keep up close to us in the product team on really what we're working and shipping. So that wraps up our first Q&A of the year. This is just a format we're introducing to just be more communicative towards you.
So actually, jump on Discord right now. First of all, leave us a feedback. What do you think about Q&A session? Maybe you have actually more questions. We'll be there to answer or actually prepare for the next Q&A.
Exactly. And of course, thank you for being here today on this video, but also, of course, for being part of the community and helping us shape the product. Until then, see you next time on the next Q&A, on the next video on our social channels, or inside Neon.
Thanks.